There has been a lot of discussion in the past few years about the United States leaving NATO. It has been a topic that Trump has brought up to NATO, threatening to leave quite a few times. It is something that he has not denied he has planned to do in his next administration. And, as we have President Biden at the moment, who is very pro NATO, very pro international aid, you have a kind of polar opposite with Donald Trump, who is very America first and does not want to send any money internationally at all. I'm just going to quickly go over why I believe leaving NATO and just the international order in general is really dumb. Not only for America's safety, but for the stability of the world, which also does affect us. And my first point is that some of our top imports are from Europe. We always consider that, we need to make America first. We need to up our production, but at the same time, we import from Europe right now. We import medical and pharmaceutical products, which millions rely on in our country, and we produce a lot of motor cars in Europe that we bring back in. One of our largest imports is from Germany alone, just Germany. Like, they're up fighting against China and China, Japan, South Korea in our top imports in the United States. And likewise, on top of that, some of our top exports are to, Germany, the UK, Netherlands, France, Belgium. Last year alone, we exported up to close to $400 billion of product to Europe, and that's about 20% of all of our exports. So to just completely back out of the safety of a region that heavily relies on the United States, not only for protection but also for production, it seems kind of not only selfish, but it seems kind of dumb to me. And you could make the argument that, maybe Donald Trump just wanted these countries to pitch in a little bit more to NATO. And to an extent, I understand that. Like the United States shouldn't be spending all of our fucking money on military production when we could be using it back here. But that doesn't mean backing out of the entire world in general. That just means holding our allies accountable. And a big argument a lot of Trump supporters or America First people have made is that, we shouldn't be going into other countries. And when people say that, it really annoys me because we're not going into Ukraine. We're not going into Israel, which I think those are two very, very separate conflicts with different reasons on why we should or should not get involved. But, for Ukraine, for instance, we're not in Ukraine. There are no American troops on the ground in Ukraine. We're helping them with our military apparatus, with our intelligence, and with weapons that we've produced in America that we will lend lease over to Ukraine for a limited amount of time. And a lot of people have brought out a peace deal. They say, let's just let Putin have these parts of Ukraine, and, it'll be fine after that. We'll make both of them kind of disarm. But, this is kind of dumb for two reasons. Because after the war, unless we unless we fight to really have some specific thing where we keep weapons in Ukraine, which I don't think Donald Trump would do, considering he tried to blackmail the president of Ukraine for political information with military aid. But it also takes me to my next point. If we just give them that land and let them know that they can take that and they can get ready, learn from their failures, and make another move on more land that we won't support a defense of, then we are leaving no order in Europe or in the world in general. Hitler only pushed as far as he did in World War II for two reasons. Because A, his plan was that the Western powers weren't really interested in genuinely fighting for these tiny countries. And for the second reason, that he was right about that. They were not willing to fight for these small countries, and because of that, they weren't prepared to. So, they were able to cause so much more destruction simply because the Europeans didn't give an order at all. Hitler, a fascist, a dictator, an authoritarian, whatever you want to call it, saw this as a weakness. And he saw this as, if they're going to let him do it, he's just going to do it. And I think this is kind of, not only with Russia, but with China too. If we were to fully just back out and show the weakness of backing out of a defense of a country and ceding it to an authoritarian power, what is to stop Iran from invading Israel or invading Saudi Arabia?
Not that I completely stand by the actions of either of these countries.
Or what would stop China from all out invading Taiwan, from just glassing the country? There's an international order that needs to be kept. And people can get mad at me for saying that, the U.S. shouldn't dictate what happens to other countries. I completely understand that. And I don't think the U.S. should determine what happens to other countries. But I believe we live in a geopolitical anarchy. And what I mean by that is if the U.S. isn't actively holding power in these regions, China will, Russia will, Iran will. So I would much rather have though America's not perfect, I would much rather have a liberal democracy controlling these regions, letting trade go through, letting civilians go through, than having nations like Iran, Russia, or China, which are inherently authoritarian, which will not give people the freedoms to let trade go through, for example. And, I don't think that the U.S. should be oppressing countries, or I don't think they should be using specific countries that I will not name as proxy states to go commit mass casualties on the civilian populations and then just not reprehend them at all. Um, but I do believe there needs to be an order, and there will be an order. And if there's going to be an order regardless, I would rather the U.S. stay in these regions and defend what they can. So I hope this kind of gives you a rundown as to why it would be a bad idea to completely back out of the world. And, let's just be honest, the Republican Party is not going to use the money that we're sending overseas to help with your health care or your roads or your education. They're going to use it to give themselves more money. They're going to use it for more subsidies for oil companies or tech companies or whoever gives them more money to give them subsidies. It's really not going to go back to the average worker, the average person in America. And I mean, you can get mad at me for saying that, but if you look at the Republican track record, it speaks for itself. Republicans have historically fought unions. They have historically fought against the raising of the minimum wage. They've fought against regulations for businesses. They've fought against regulations for the environment. So, yeah, this election is going to be really important because it's going to determine what the U.S. does in the future. And God forbid, I do not want to live in a world, and I think many, many Europeans don't either, want to live in a world in which the United States has decided that since we've controlled this land and controlled these regions for so long and we've exploited all their resources and now we're at the top of the world and we're finally done, we're just going to back out and let anarchy fall through. That's not fair, that's not right, and that's not what America's supposed to stand for. If we're going to be the protector of liberty and democracy around the world, god damn, we need to fucking stand up for that. Like, seriously, if you care about your country, if you care about your safety, if you care about your economy, you care about NATO, and you care about an international order. So I'll leave that with y'all, but yeah, y'all have a wonderful day. Please subscribe.